Hi, and welcome to Cloutcast.
Hi, this is our first episode of Cloutcast, and we are covering Doctor Who Season 2 Roundup.
Yes, we are here for the first time, so it's going to be an interesting one. But yeah, we've got a lot to talk about on this series. It's one of my all-time favourite shows. One I've always been very passionate about. So yeah, let's get stuck in. I guess we can kind of kick off with a bit about where this season is different to the last one. So I don't know if a lot of people have been following the recent era of Doctor Who. We started off with Russel T Davies, a writer who was renowned for actually bringing back Doctor Who in 2005. When he was announced, I think it was in 2021, that he'd be returning to showrun, which is actually unfounded in Doctor Who history. So this has never happened before.
Oh, okay.
Which is, it was very exciting at the time. I remember when I found out, just thinking like, this is going to be great, because his era was always renowned as like the golden era of Doctor Who. So having him back, I think I could probably say most or the majority of fans were very excited. But obviously since then, there's been quite a few different things that have happened. So he brought back David Tennant and
The GOAT.
That's debatable. And Catherine Tate, so they came back for the 60th anniversary, which was again controversial because a Doctor hasn't come back into the show before as a new incarnation. But it's been in the history and the lore of the show, it's been shown that it is possible for the Doctor to regenerate back into an old face. So that was the first for the show. And the episodes were good. The specials that they did for the 60th were good, but a lot of people maybe felt it wasn't a celebration or a true celebration of the overall show. But anyway, I digress. Then Ncuti Gatwa came in as the 15th Doctor.
Good addition.
He was good. He is good. We'll get to why I'm saying was or is. But yeah, he had his first season last year. And season 2 was filmed back to back with season 1. So the worrying thing about that was how Russell couldn't maybe take on board criticisms from his first season of the show because everything was already filmed, unless they went back and did more production in the meantime. But yeah, so with this season, there obviously came an opportunity for some more far-fetched and fantastical stories to indulge in. Continued story arcs from the first season. So we had a couple of extra writers in this season as well, including Sharma Angel Walfall, Inua Ellams, McTighe, and Juno Dawson. So they all brought their own take on the 15th Doctor, which was interesting, considering that in the last season, Russell kind of took most of the reins of writing. So yeah, basically what we're going to be going through is a bit about like the personal highs and lows and midpoints from this season, in our opinion. Yeah, we've broken down bits after the episodes, and yeah, sometimes it was frustrating. So we'll get into that.
A lot to discuss.
So yeah, and obviously, if I've rated something as a high, it doesn't mean that there's zero negative qualities to it, and likewise, a low point doesn't mean that there was zero positive elements. It's just the majority kind of vote, I guess, in my brain that I've given it. So we'll kick off with my low number 1, which was the Robot Revolution.
The Robot Revolution!
Episode 1 of the season. So this plot, I feel like the plot still kind of started quite well. You have like the Doctor running around trying to find Belinda. So this is a new character. We've not seen before, or we have seen her in the show before, but as a different character. So again, that added a layer of intrigue for people, but a lot of people weren't maybe interested. It was more a thing of, why have we got another character appearing who's appeared before? This has happened multiple times with Karen Gillan as Amy Pond. She previously appeared in an old episode. Peter Capaldi was in an old episode as well. So it's not an unfounded thing. Even Clara Oswald had multiple appearances. So yeah, people are getting a bit fed up with this continued story arc of a mysterious woman appearing. So we start off by showing Belinda being gifted with the star certificate by an ex-boyfriend called Al, many years prior to the present. And then we fast forward to show the pace kind of starts to move along quite quickly as Belinda is kidnapped by some robots who just turn up at her house. The Doctor's kind of following along, trying to find her. And then she's basically taken away to a planet called Miss Belinda Chandra 1, which is, I think it's it is revealed that because of the star certificate, that seems to be what's caused this coincidence in the story. So, yeah, it's a bit of a basic plot. I mean, the robots look quite childish, in my opinion. They had a bit of a Sarah Jane Adventures. Yeah, the robots, I mean, they looked okay, I guess. So they believe that she is their queen on the planet, but it's a bit of a weird one because they seem to be rebelling for some reason. There's a group of humanoids who seem to be in what's the word, like under control of the robots, like they're kind of in subjunction to them. I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah, they're kind of trying to overtake the robots. So yeah, but also there's a bit of timey-wimeyness, as the Doctor would say, where on the travel to the planet, the Doctor also followed behind in the TARDIS, but there was a time fracture which caused the Doctor to arrive 6 months prior to Belinda's arrival. So when she arrives, it's only been like maybe a couple of hours, or I think they say weeks in the show, but for him it's been months. So that allows him to build his presence with the rebels, build his friendships. So yeah, and then it's revealed that the robots wish for Belinda to marry the great AI generator, who is the instigator of their rebellion against the planet's people. So once the Doctor and Belinda escape from the robots, things generally start to slow down in the plot. It becomes quite a bit less interesting, in my opinion, as the characters escape to their hideaway. It just feels like it's not as exciting as a rebellion-based storyline could be, with just literally one scene of them, fighting against the robots. The conclusion of the story then also brings a little bit of a twist. So the AI generator is actually revealed as Alan. So it's not AI generator, it's the Owl generator, meant to be clever, I guess. But yeah, so he'd also been picked up by the robots in the past, which was inadvertently caused by Belinda. So she had told them in the ship that it was Al who got her the certificate, go and find him. So this essentially sparked the robot revolution, which led to her being kidnapped in the first place. So this would be also known as a bootstrap paradox.
What is a bootstrap paradox?
That's a good question. So I can probably explain it as when something. So say I can put it in terms of if something exists like Shakespeare's play Romeo and Juliet, and someone thought, I want to know how he came up with the idea. So then they time travel to meet William Shakespeare to a point where he's not written it. And then they say, oh, why don't you make a play called Romeo and Juliet? And he thinks, oh, that's a good idea, and writes it. Then it's almost a sense of who caused Romeo and Juliet to come into existence. Was it Shakespeare, or was it the person in the future who'd already known it existed? So it's like a self-fulfilling timeline or loop. There's other examples, but that's the one that came to mind. It's an interesting one. It's quite cool. So yeah, and then Alan also somehow possesses the same copy of the star certificate, which is revealed that it's a future version of the one that Belinda had. So then Belinda uses her own to spark an explosion between the two when they touch, which kind of destroys Al in the process because it reverts him into an egged sperm, which is quite strange for Doctor Who. But yeah, anything's possible here. But yeah, the Doctor, the reason Belinda didn't get such a fate herself is because the Doctor caught her when she fell back from the explosion, so he saves her because he's a Time Lord, and yeah, that's I guess one of his powers. Yeah, so overall the story is naturally much more of a character introduction rather than plot focused. It serves as a way of introducing Belinda's moral codes to the audience. Although I don't think this will stand as a classic episode amongst fans. one that's going to be rewatched for years to come. So that is load number one.
I mean, on my side, this was me watching Doctor Who. I think the last one I watched with, I guess, enthusiasm was probably David Tennant. Then you've also shown me some Peter Capaldi episodes, which were good. So it was very much me trying to understand the characters, and they did a decent job of that. I also agree that the story could have been better, but yeah, it was mainly character building, learning, mainly Belinda. And then this was my introduction to the Doctor. So yeah, I guess it did what it needed.
Yeah, I think that's very much what the first episodes of the show usually seem to be, very introductory. It depends if it's like a established. So I think in the old series with Matt Smith, where he had his companions already in place and they continued from the previous, it always worked nicely because you could just jump straight into a story that was actually very interesting and had a lot of depth to it. Whereas introducing a new companion, it just creates a whole new scenario. So yeah, I think it did the job. We have high number one next, which was the episode that follows the Robot Revolution called Lux. So this one I enjoyed a lot more. This, obviously, with the introduction of Belinda out of the way, this episode places her and the Doctor straight into a mystery surrounding a chained-up cinema and missing people. So whilst Belle was not so much interested in solving this as she is in getting home, the Doctor just can't resist as usual and starts investigating, beginning with a local diner before heading into the cinema. This change in pace and setting to 1950s Miami is a welcome touch. It continues to showcase the Doctor's ever-changing fashion sense, with a nice little callback to last year's wardrobe change scene in The Devil's Cord. And once inside the cinema, the excitement really starts to ramp up as the two meet a cartoon character who's come to life, who'd been introduced in the pre-credits sequence. The visual effects in the episode overall are beautiful, in my opinion. They just bring this cartoon called Mr. Ring-a-Ding to life so well, more than once as well, which I'll explain later. There's varied styles of animation and visuals that flow and integrate with live action seamlessly. So the Disney investment is truly paying off in this episode, and it's safe to say this level of effects has never been seen on Doctor Who until now. Both characters are amazed at how this cartoon can even exist, but it soon becomes clear that he was involved in the disappearance of the cinema's occupants. He reveals his true name and status as Lux Imperator, the God of Light, which sparks fear in the Doctor and continues the trend of the pantheon of gods appearing. Lux even identifies the Doctor as the one enemy of the Toymaker, decomposer of Maestro, the killer of the God of Death. He soon shows his power when he transforms the Doctor and Belinda themselves into cartoons, with the two having to escape from the film that they're trapped in. So this leads to a very meta, self-referential scene for the show, where the Doctor and Belinda escape and find themselves in a living room with three fictional Doctor Who fans, or aka Whovians, where they're sat and shocked at their fictional hero bursting through the screen.
Firstly, you're definitely a Whovian. Didn't know that was the term. Yeah, this was quite a brave thing for them to undertake because, transitioning from real life scenes to cartoon is very brave, I think. Would you not agree?
It was, I think, because they did it so, it was very fast, and there wasn't a lot of movement in it, so I think that's why it felt like, okay, this is cool, but they didn't have like the Doctor and Belinda running around Miami as cartoons, which I think could have looked really cool. But yeah, I mean, it's a unique concept for the show. Like they've not really done anything like this before, so it was nice to see it. It had that kind of old school Disney cartoon vibe to it at times, which was nice. So yeah, I liked it. I really liked the style of animation. It was great. But yeah, so once they get into the living room of the Whovians, there's some references to many fan favorite episode Blink, which was written by Stephen Moffat, also a favorite of mine, writer wise and episode wise. along with some jokes about Doctor Who fans being annoying, which was a likely nod by Russell T Davies at the many complaints that fans of the show are not afraid to share on social media. Some fans on X had actually theorised that Russell was leading towards a reveal of the Doctor, realising he's a fictional character, but they thought this would happen in the season finale called The Reality War. However, this week's episode handled it in a way that leaves it open to interpretation, as the fans are revealed to be fictional themselves, and a part of Lux's plan to trap the Doctor, who is actually real, even though the mid-credit scene does call this into question when these fans reappear and still exist.
So that's Lux with the pig nose.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
So he was in like a old school film that was being played and comes to life when the moonlight reflects off of a spoon onto the film and brings him to life. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So once they escape, Lux from the film, that is, Lux takes advantage of the Doctor's regeneration energy to create himself a new body, which leads to Reginald, the cinema's projectionist, blowing a hole in the cinema to expose Lux to daylight. This then allows the Doctor and Belinda to escape, whilst Lux begins to grow in stature from absorbing the light, the sunlight. However, this then becomes his downfall as he becomes pure light and disappears into the universe. So, yet again, showing how the gods are basically taken down by their own powers, which has happened multiple times in the show now. So, overall, I think the episode really balances the concept brilliantly, and despite the use of a cartoon, which may imply a childish episode, it doesn't feel that way, instead cementing itself as a strong episode for the season.
That sounds like a very fair take. And after seeing Lux's character, he looks very interesting, like an evil Disney character.
Yeah.
I'll take that. So this is an episode I also saw, which is Josh's high number 2, and I'd also call it a high. So this episode was The Well. The Doctor and Belinda travel far into the future to a deserted planet, joining an expedition to find a missing person. What they find puts them in grave danger, a danger that the Doctor hasn't experienced before. So they are thrust straight into another adventure. This time on, they have no control over, as they join an expedition to a new planet. So the Doctor realizes that the planet was previously covered in diamonds, and after hearing the deceased crew on tape say we don't know what it is, the coin begins to drop. And it's revealed in dramatic fashion that the planet was called Midnight 400,000 years ago. The titular episode from Series 4, where David Tennant's Doctor visited the planet and faced the same creature. It's revealed that Alice has been infiltrated by the creature, with her now hosting it, always present behind her. Its abilities to differ from the creature encountered in Midnight. Originally, it seemed to possess a human, mimicking any words it heard from others, before eventually stealing people's words before they'd even spoken them. Now it whispers to its victims a sign that they'd now be the new host, and kills anyone who stands directly behind it, which by the Doctor's logic is due to that being in the midnight clock position. So when watching this episode, it was interesting because the build-up was quite hyped, because this lady Alice was quite a mysterious character. When they first get to the ship, a lot of people have died and she's the only survivor?
So she's basically, solo survivor. It's revealed that she killed the last person who was there because they were threatening to kill her. So it was set up as, and also because she was deaf as well, it also adds that layer of difficulty for her as a character, and obviously Doctor and everyone around her. It adds that vulnerability, probably why they sympathised more with her as well. So it was definitely a dangerous setup for her as a character.
No, for sure. The on-screen glimpses that are given of the creature are very fleeting, so much so that you even question if you saw something yourself, which is very true. We even went back after to see the slow motion pictures of what's the monster, or what do I call it?
It's called, I think it's just the entity, or like the midnight entity it's called. For me, when I was watching it actually looks like spine tingling, like I felt the hair standing on end when those little flashes God, even now when I'm saying it, I've got like a little shiver on my back. But it's,
A true Whovian.
it just shows like how well they executed it, because it's such, I just think it was great the way they did it. And the monster was, I guess it had that fear element, the scare factor, which you want in Doctor Who. Even the way that the Doctor displays, or that Ncuti displays the Doctor's fear, it's where he has like literally tears in his eyes. I know a lot of people hate how the Doctor cries a lot now, but this felt like his fear was showing that. And obviously the monster even like somehow knows the Doctor's name. You don't hear it say it, but the Doctor's like, it knows my name. So yeah, it can clearly see into people's minds. But yeah, there's a great bit where there's a change in the Doctor's eyes, where it's like he finally figures out how to escape. I just think that's that's obviously a testament to Ncuti's performance, being able to go from fear to, I don't know what the word would be, but his genius within a matter of seconds. So yeah, but obviously there's a lot of paranoia amongst the characters and the crew. They're all showing that human nature of fear, and when they're under pressure of potentially dying. Their perspective of Alice and how they should deal with the creature all kind of clash. Some respond in anger. Cassio was one of the crew members. He was very angry and seemed to just want to go in all guns blazing. But the leader of the crew, Shia, eventually responds by getting Alice to turn in such a direction so that that Cassio is right behind the entity, and then he ends up being killed. So even though it's manipulative, it's like that survival instinct, I guess, that they're trying to show. And the Doctor doesn't approve, but I guess he understands in the show.
Then the concluding moment will also show another crew member, Mo, speaking with her colleague who seems to notice something behind her, with the closing moments of darkness followed by faint whispers. This episode does a great job of creating tension and drama, leaving viewers wondering which direction the episode will go and how such a creature can be escaped.
Yeah, I think, when they do these base under siege stories with no access to the TARDIS and, any other help, they tend to blow the audience away with these innovative monsters and stories. So yeah, overall, a great episode. Kind of felt quite like old Doctor.
So now we come to my low number 2, which was for Lucky Day, which was episode 4. So yeah, this story, a lot of people seem to love it, from the discourse I've seen on Twitter. And yeah, to be honest, I didn't really see the big hype around it, because this was another Doctor Light episode. So that concept of the Doctor not really being a part of it is quite regular in Doctor Who series. But I'm not a big fan of it, especially for Ncuti, who's barely had any time to play the Doctor. So anyway, the story was pretty straightforward. So it focuses on Ruby's life a little since she's left the Doctor in the last series. The Doctor only has 3 scenes in the episode, and Belinda's only present for the pre-title sequence. And so after a few episodes with Belinda and the Doctor facing these unique or exciting concepts, it feels like a shame to be back on modern day Earth with a more grounded and less extraordinary story. So we're introduced to a character called Conrad as a young boy who meets the Doctor on the off a kind of chance meeting in 2007 when the Doctor is trying to get Belinda home. So he then, after this, comes across a past version of the 15th Doctor when Conrad grows up, he meets the Doctor again, or sees him rather, on his travels with Ruby, and becomes contaminated with a substance that an alien called the Shriek use to track their prey, which the Doctor and Ruby are trying to get away from. And so at this point, once he sees Ruby, he then tries to get in touch with her somehow, and he interviews her for his podcast, which he has in place somehow. So yeah, he's from here. They begin to date, eventually going on a weekend break in an English village. And then we start to see more of Conrad's true character and his intentions in dating Ruby become exposed. So essentially, he's a member of an organisation called Think Tank, who have actually, there was kind of appeared in the old series back in the, I think, 70s or 80s. But I think it's a separate organisation now. It's more of an Easter egg. and they believe that UNIT are taking taxpayers' money, creating false stories about aliens, using fear to control the public. So his choice is, like, he chooses not to take this particular antidote, which would repel the shriek from finding him. And this seems like a clear commentary on anti-vaxxers, with Conrad's denial of the truth putting him in direct danger later on, when the shriek is released by Kate Stewart, the head of UNIT. So where the scenes are taking place in UNIT Tower, they're meant to feel quite tense. They're kind of overshadowed by the fact that viewers already know that those present at UNIT would be appearing later on in the series. So that kind of danger element's almost taken away a little bit. Kate Stewart is also pushed to the edge in the episode, so her patience wears thin to the point where she releases the alien that will hunt him down. She recognises that the Doctor would disapprove of these actions and would even try to stop her, but his absence gives her an excuse that she needs in that moment. So if we're up to the Doctor, who knows what he may have chosen to do. Yeah, so they basically had him in in a containment unit in their tower. Conrad had broken in, and had like a gun, and Kate was basically just fed up of his rubbish and was just like, yeah, let me show you the truth and your followers, because he was like filming it. So it was a case of, if you want to prove the truth type thing, then here you go. Yeah, but it was one of those moments. That bit, I'd give it to them. That bit was quite cool in the way it was done. But again, that was probably the most exciting part of the episode. So yeah, Doctor Who generally hasn't shied away from political commentary. There's been episodes about war, genocide, colonialism, and this episode takes a stance on both, people's personal autonomy over their body choices and society fighting against an organisation that they don't believe in. So obviously, whilst both angles have their points, I think the writer's intentions may come across as muddled, with the audience knowing UNIT are a trustworthy organisation who the Doctor trusts, but recognising how some organisations do need to be called out for their potential lies, such as governments in the world. It's clear, though, that Pete McTighe, the writer's intentions were to exemplify ignorance within people in the face of the truth. So with Ruby returning after some time away from the show, this episode explores how she's felt after coming home as well, having had some near-death experiences with the Doctor. Finding Conrad and breaking down her barriers and getting to know him, we see this vulnerable, trusting side of her, just as she's trusted the Doctor, and sharing stories that she felt she couldn't. But obviously, when she finds out that he's been lying and using her, this brings her into a position she's not dealt with before. And as a much younger companion compared to Belinda, it's clear that they've got differences in I guess, their nature. Ruby up until this point has been very trusting, but Belinda seems a bit more world weary. She recognises danger in the Doctor kind of from the jump. So with Conrad, he does get what he deserves in the end. He ends up in prison. The shriek doesn't hurt him, as I think Ruby just tases him in the end. But with limited screen time for the Doctor, his final scene where he lands the TARDIS around Conrad, so he basically allows him into the TARDIS. He really gives him a piece of his mind in this part, and it just shows more of his dark side spilling out of his usually quite cool and joyful self, which was great to see, actually. Ncuti always pulls off the anger very well, I think. He's got this, his main core is to never, he chose the name Doctor, say, to never give up, never give in, never be cruel or cowardly. But he knows that sometimes he can't stick to his own rules. And there's been multiple times in episodes where he's gone super rogue and just does whatever he wants, and then he realizes after this was the wrong thing. So I would say, even though the anger is a core of his character, it's not what he wants to be. It's more of a byproduct of his experiences in the universe, and the passion that he has for saving people. That he doesn't kill for joy. It's like he's killed people and aliens and stuff, always out of an anger for the pain they're causing, or the problems that they're kind of putting onto species in the universe. So but I'd say his core is to be kind and yeah, just show love to people and to everyone and anything really, no matter how small. Nothing's unimportant to the Doctor. Yeah. But yeah, so once the Doctor's speaking with Conrad, um, he actually Conrad is the one that reveals to the Doctor that he will meet Belinda. So this is like Conrad meets the Doctor at 3 different points in his life, which is quite strange. But it's part and parcel of Doctor Who. So then this is what leads the Doctor to then start looking for Belinda. As he'd mentioned in the first episode, someone had mentioned her name to him. So yeah. There's a bit where the Doctor is just spilling out his anger and basically just being super rude to him, like, which is great. Obviously, much to Conrad's reluctance to listen to him, and the look in the Doctor's eyes when he says these words to him, like, "I'll tell you your future. You'll die in a prison cell. You'll be forgotten. You're not even a footnote." Like, it's to him, yeah. To say those type of things is just cruel, but I guess warranted in a way. But yeah, so overall, with a season of only 8 episodes, I feel like this Doctor Light episode just feels like a waste of shooty. And being back in modern day London doesn't really invoke that excitement that a Disney funded Doctor Who really should, in my opinion. Now we come to high number 3. Yeah, so it's a divisive one for me because I did like it, but then also it was like, I feel like it could have had more to it to an extent. But it goes on the highs because it's got that unique concept and it's just very different to most episodes in this era of Doctor Who. So essentially, the Doctor and Belinda land in Nigeria. They want to utilize the country's networking to boost the Vindicator to get her home. But then he ends up persuading Belinda just to stay there a bit longer due to his kinship with the people of Nigeria. So after the Doctor's lost Gallifrey twice now, and his people, and he's encountering racial prejudice in his current body. So he finds acceptance and love here. He exchanges stories with others at Omo's palace, which is the barbershop. And you see his joy as he's wandering the marketplace. He's hugging people. He's, shaking hands with people. He's just got a real love, and he looks around, and you can see that joy in him. So whilst he's making his way to the shop, he starts to see missing posters for missing people on the walls. With Omo, his friend who owns the barbershop, being one of the missing men. So once he gets to the shop, he soon realizes that things have changed. It's now under new management, but Omo is in there, but he's just not in charge anymore. So the barber, as he's mysteriously named, is revealed to have offered Omo a haircut one day. But as soon as his clippers touched Omo, it was like there was in Omo's words, a sort of current just ran through the whole shop like magic, like witchcraft, and it seemed to transfer its soul to him, to the barber. So the barber is assisted by his sister Abby, who brings food for the people in the shop. So there's about 4 people in the shop, but has a clear disdain for the Doctor once she sees him for an unknown reason at this point. He also recognises her, but doesn't realise until later, which I'll come to. So the barber's goal is essentially that those who sit in a chair for a haircut have to tell a story which is powering an engine, which in turn will enable the barbershop to somehow travel towards somewhere unknown. So the mechanics of the shop seem to allow people to enter from the outside, but once in, they join this journey and can't leave without permission of the barber. And once someone has had a haircut, their hair literally magically grows back instantly, almost, meaning they have to continue telling their stories, having haircuts over and over again. So the Doctor tells a simple story about Belinda on one of her shifts at work and the kindness she showed, and the appreciation she received from her kindness, which this one story is enough to supercharge the engine to its fullest that it's been in ages. And this prompts Omo to ask the barber to release him and the others so that the Doctor can now power the engine with his stories. This leads to quite a tense scene between the Doctor and Omo. So he realizes that he'd been hoping for the Doctor to arrive at some point, and planned to use the Doctor's stories as a way to get the others home. A betrayal which obviously devastates the Doctor. He sees, he says, because I have no home, I'm expendable. I love this shop. I loved you, Omo. I thought it was a home for me. I was safe. So when he manages to open the door with his Sonic to let them fulfill their wish and leave, he soon sees what's going on, and they're actually moving through space with the shop sat on top of this massive giant spider, which is being fed by the story engine. So this is where you get into that crazy Doctor Who territory now. Oh, so his sonic screwdriver, he just uses that to break the barrier that's around the door, like this magic barrier. So what follows after this is we see a kind of reveal of who the barber really is. He lists off a bunch of names from like mythology, so like Anansi, Saga, Bastet, Dionysus, Loki. He's basically saying that he's taken all these names as his own in the past. But the Doctor just laughs at this. He lists off all the times he's met most of these gods that have been mentioned on adventures we've not seen. And it's instead we realise that the barber was in fact just working for the gods. He was sharing their stories and legends in order to strengthen them and their bond with humanity, and created this web, which is called the Nexus, that the spider is traveling along as a way of connecting stories, constantly expanding. He wanted recognition for his work, but he's being told he should know his place by the gods, and then ends up being cast out from them, basically making him redundant from the Nexus, which starts doing his job for him. I saw this kind of as a kind of double meaning, as like how AI has started to do human jobs for them. So like we've trained technology so much that it's making humanity almost redundant. So yeah, but his true goal now is, as an act of revenge, is to basically erase the gods from memory, which in turn will kill them and harm the essence of humanity's ability to tell stories. So this is the main goal of traveling along this Nexus now, and that's what the stories are facilitating. So after the mention of Anansi, Doctor then realizes who Abby is. She was Anansi's daughter. So this is the link that they've had with each other, as it's revealed that Anansi was actually the barber and Abby's father, who who bet Abby's life to the Doctor, and he purposely lost the bet. So this left her behind with nothing but resentment for the Doctor, who she'd heard such positive stories about. This then leads to a very brief appearance from Joe Martin's fugitive Doctor in a small cameo. So this slightly expands her history, whilst also raising the question of how the current Doctor remembers this moment of his life. So eventually Abby realises her brother's been lying to her, and she then uses an empowering story herself about. So she basically has the Doctor in the chair, uses a story of how women slaves would break free of their chains, using hair braiding as a means to create maps and save other slaves. As she braids the Doctor's hair, he then realises that she's giving him a way out of the shop to find the story engine. Or it's in the shop, I think, but you see in the episode. So this then leads to a fan-pleasing moment where the Doctor finds and connects himself to the story engine, mentioning that his body is like a barbershop, all of them inside telling their stories, bickering, which is in reference to his past selves. This then shows there's like a whole load of TV screens all around him, and we see flashes of all the past Doctors, which the barber is looking on at in horror. And this consequently endangers the engine because it's going to explode from this sheer amount of stories. So, yeah, there's moments that we've all seen on screen before. The Doctor appeals to the barber that 7 billion lives will be wrecked if he has his way with this plot. When he realizes that he's endangered the whole planet, he allows the others to leave, but he just sits in shame, almost accepting his death, like he's waiting for it to happen. But the Doctor shows mercy in this moment, and he appeals to him, just telling him, "Don't let this be how your story ends." We then see that the Doctor and the barber do manage to make it out of the shop just in time before it explodes. Oh, not well. The shop doesn't explode, but the spider tries to escape from it somehow, and then it itself it becomes it just the spider then explodes from the sheer amount of power that's been funneled through the engine. So then it's basically happy endings all round. So no one's died. The barbershop is restored. Omo is forgiven by the Doctor. And he then chooses to hand the reins of the shop to the barber. The barber doesn't feel like he deserves this kindness. He thanks Omo, and he also doesn't feel like he has a name that can be trusted. So Omo then gives him the name of his father, which was Adeto Kumbo, which was a name that meant a lot. I think in the episode they do give a meaning for his name. So yeah, and then Abby also finds the freedom to do what she wants. She leaves her brother, not in bitterness, but understanding the hurt that he's experienced. And they just give each other a simple kind of nod, wave, almost to say goodbye. So I think overall the episode just gives a fresh experience for viewers. The concept of having to tell stories to survive, I do feel it could have been executed better. As it's established that the spider just, that consumes the stories does so in order to keep traveling. But if it were the case that only a certain kind of story could maybe further them on that journey, this would add more peril to the story and danger. Maybe if it was the case that if the engine wasn't satisfied with the story, it would consume the storyteller itself. That could have worked, maybe, given an opportunity for the Doctor to tell stories about his past that we haven't seen before on the screen, kind of unraveling some more secrets to his already muddled past. And one moment that I think highlights how this episode stands out is when Rashid, one of the trapped residents, tells a story about music, saying, in the old days, music was a live thing, but after Industrial Revolution, people became obsessed with producing identical things to package time, but not in Africa. As an episode that is reminiscent of a play, kind of with its limited barbershop setting and circumstances that haven't been seen before in Doctor Who, it certainly stands as an episode that isn't identical to others, creating a story that just shines light on the importance of stories themselves and their connection to humans, I think.
Next is Josh's high number 4, the Interstellar Song Contest. So the TARDIS lands. Doctor and Belinda are all struck at where they landed.
Which is the Harmony. Oh, what was it called? The Harmony Arena. Harmony Arena, that was it. Yeah.
Good memory. So yeah, Belinda's intent on staying to experience the show. With a quick glimpse of Rylan,
Their host.
the host.
Yeah.
They sit back and enjoy. So from the crowd, Mrs. Flood, who we've been introduced to since...
She was in the church on Ruby Road, so Christmas 2023. Yeah. Keeps popping up. Here's the most recent. Well, up until this point, this is the most recent for her.
Yes. And Mrs. Flood is spying on both Belinda and the Doctor, spotting that the Doctor has used the Vindicator and pulls out a device of her own, which appears to be ready for something. She's in a rush to leave. Then they are quite quickly thrown into action with a backstage siege occurring as two horned humanoids called Kid and Win hold the production team hostage and soon bring down the gravity shield, or Mavity as the show is intent on calling it, hurtling 100,000 people into space, including the Doctor and Mrs. Flood. A couple, Gary and Mike, who were meant to have tickets into the show, find their booth is taken by the Doctor and Belinda, but this ends up keeping them safe from being thrown into space.
So, in a surprise appearance, there's some brief cameos from the Doctor's granddaughter, Susan. So she's originally and still played by Carol Ann Ford. and she appears in the Doctor's mind as he's freezing in space. So she basically tells him to go back and find me, waking him up abruptly from this state that he's in. So this, obviously, there'd been a few hints at Susan returning in season 1, but I wouldn't have expected it to be in this episode. I was quite surprised by it. Although it was nice to see her come back finally after so many years, I feel like they could have handled this more subtly, maybe with some like whispers of her voice echoing in his mind, before actually showing her, rather than just some quick flashes of her in the TARDIS talking into a camera. I felt it was a bit too, I don't know, on the nose, and then maybe not handled as kind of poignantly as it could have been. So yeah, at this point, the Doctor then wakes up and finds a confetti cannon from the show floating in space, which he then uses to blast himself back to the space station, which was slightly cheesy, but it was a fun way of the Doctor getting back to safety, and I don't think it was overly cheesy, to be honest. And then, much to Gary and Mike's surprise, who were watching on the space station, and he tells them that he had basically triplicated the gravity field, which meant that everyone who had been shot out into space was still alive. So basically, we then have scenes of the Doctor trying to do his techno stuff, and he eventually gets through to Kid via video call, and he's threatened by Kid. Kid's saying that he'll kill everyone on board, but the Doctor's not having any of it and turns them back on him. He turns quite cold, telling him that essentially that he'll kill him and cast him out into the void and watch him as he dies, basically, which Belinda's watching from another point in the space station, and she's understandably shocked at this.
So then we come across another character, Cora, who was meant to sing at the song contest, but is saved by Wynn, unbeknownst to Kid. She has the fact that she is from Helia. Is it Helia?
Yeah.
Helia. Having cut off her own horns, and when her assistant describes them as weird lot, they say they practice cannibalism and witchcraft. They've got these horns. People say they give them psychic powers. Cora defends them as a species that aren't understood and reveals the truth. The parallels between the events of the episode and the current state of the Palestine-Israel conflict were controversial and confused, portraying Kid and Wynn, survivors of Helia's genocide, as revenge-seeking maniacs who are willing to kill 3 trillion innocent viewers of the contest in order to portray the corporation in its true light. You see, at this point, I never understood their plot, because the people running this song contest, were they sponsored by the company they hated, right?
Yes.
So getting to the song contest, to me, was not a good way of getting to the sponsors themselves, especially 3 trillion people.
Yeah, I think what their idea was, if they kill the viewers, that then will reflect on the people who are sponsoring it, as if that they were responsible almost. Which was silly though, because how can the logic behind it? I think it is showing that they're hurt people. They're trying to hurt others to prove a point. But it's clear that Kid is kind of the one running things, and he doesn't care about killing innocent lives. He's just trying to prove a point almost.
No, you're right. And with Kid taking that charge, this angers the Doctor immensely, who does not know of Kid's background or reasoning, but instead sees him as someone whose cold, filthy heart just likes to kill. This leads to an intense scene where the Doctor uses a hologram of himself to trick Kid, destroying the Delta Wave with a flick of his sonic screwdriver, and then converting holograms of himself into hard light, allowing him to electrocute Kid multiple times, with further glimpses of Susan urging him to stop. He gives in to his fury and ignores her until Belinda enters the room, snapping him out of this trance. And this was very not noticeable, but this was very memorable, because that was the first time Belinda had seen this side of him.
Yeah, she'd only really seen this quite flippant, joyful side to the Doctor, which was why she was obviously shocked when she heard him, going off on one at Kid earlier. But to see him doing that, is that what I really liked was the way that she just kind of quietly
says like no to what he's doing, and then that's when then the Doctor snaps out of it. It's like a real like because Susan in his mind in that moment isn't really real to him, but Belinda is there and real, and that's what I think is what snaps him out of it, because he knows that he can't, like, his granddaughter can't physically stop him, even though she's in his mind. But Belinda like is there, and he can't ignore that. So yeah, I personally, even though I know a lot of people didn't, I liked this moment of him showing his anger, because like just the Doctor's always had that quite mythical, legendary status in Doctor Who, in more recent years, and to see like Ncuti being able to show that side of the Doctor, and the power that he holds was just very. I just enjoyed it myself. Yeah,
That scene was quite a powerful scene.
yeah,
It reminded me that in a lot of ways he is a superhero. So
yeah,
superheroes have these moments.
yeah. Even though he's obviously flawed, and he realizes this. But yeah. So yeah, but I mean, obviously, commentary on the episode following the release focused a lot on this scene, and many viewers were angry at how the Doctor, who's a victim of genocide in the show, could be written in this kind of way. You know, comparing this actually to the episode previously, the story in the engine, where the Doctor showed mercy to the barber, who was kind of doing a similar thing, but did not do so to Kid here. Didn't show him that mercy. So while it's understandable, I do feel it's flawed, this argument, because in episode 5, the barber doesn't really. I don't think he actually realised that he's endangering so many lives, human lives, until the Doctor points it out to him. So, you know, whereas in this episode, Kid knows exactly what he's doing, and it's also not yet known by the Doctor that Kid is reacting out of a revenge for Helia, which is why the Doctor just sees him as a murderous maniac. But it can be said that the Doctor could have tried to find out Kid's motivations before acting so angrily. But it seems that the aim of these scenes was just to show a side to the 15th Doctor that hadn't really been explored before, reminiscent of when the 12th Doctor's often angry side would come out, and he wasn't afraid of exploiting his power to get what he wanted.
With Kid taken incarcerated at the end, the Doctor makes it clear that the ice in his heart is still there, and his anger towards Kid hasn't left him. After this, the Doctor's new friends Mike and Gary find a way to bring back those floating in space. I remember this. Leading to a happy ending for all. It is only once the show is back on and Cora sings. Okay, before I get to Cora and her very nice performance, I'll be honest, but the scene where they're bringing people back from floating in space, it was like a scene where, you know, they use the sound, and then you go one place, do something, then you go another place, do something.
Yeah, bit cartoony.
Yeah. I mean, they had to patch that up quickly.
Yeah.
Which, you can say whatever. But then that takes me to Cora's song at the end, and that's what tied together the whole theme of the episode. And it was quite touching. So Cora's singing about the devastation on the planet to shed light on the true nature of the corporation, which is received with all-round applause as the Doctor realizes the reasons behind her fellow Hellions who are trying to kill to prove a point.
Yeah, and then obviously the resolution comes. It shows Belinda confronting the Doctor, not in her usual way. Before she'd be a lot more abrupt, but instead she shows a softer approach. You know, instead of calling him out for his actions, which is a shame considering the previous shade she'd thrown at the Doctor, but arguably much worse actions. But yeah, the episode ends with a hologram of Graham Norton, because why not? Eurovision, informing the two that Earth was obliterated into rocks and dust, which leaves the Doctor and Belinda to jump into the TARDIS and try and finally get back to May 24th, now that the Vindicator is fully charged up. So this puts the TARDIS under a strain, with the cloister bells ringing as a sign of danger. I remember you laughing when I said this.
Cloister bells.
Because it's such a term known to Doctor Who fans, but I was like, the cloister bells are ringing, and you just started laughing. But yeah, and then the TARDIS doors explode going into the credits. But then we have the end, there's a mid-credit scene,
which has Mrs. Flood being somehow the last person coincidentally to be revived. And she reveals that she's something, her brainstem, her double brainstem froze, which again fans will know is a Time Lord trait. And then she says she has her own knack of getting out of this situation. And then you see the regeneration glow. So we know at this point, yeah, she's one of the Doctor's race. But then she biogenerates just as the Doctor had, with a new Rani splitting from the old Rani, and they're now being two incarnations similar to the Doctor. Which I feel like in the mid-credit scene, I don't see why this had to be done here. I feel like they could have really played this up more. Maybe even kept it for the finale as a reveal of who Mrs. Flood was. But it felt a bit anticlimactic here, even if it was exciting. But overall, from the initial announcement of the episode to wrap it up, it implied Eurovision in space with Ryland Clark as its host. So viewers wouldn't have been blamed for thinking that this would be a fun throwaway adventure. But what actually was delivered was more of a commentary on corporations exposing innocent lives and committing genocide hidden behind a facade. There was obviously moments of humour and silliness and high stakes, with the chilling performance from Ncuti, all capped off by that cliffhanger in the end. So overall, I enjoyed this episode.
It was a thrilling episode. And now we get to the juicy ones.
Yeah, very juicy.
Yeah, we can't use that.
So now we come to low number 3. Unfortunately, it's for both Wishworld and The Reality War, which were the finale of the season. So the finale of each series serves as a way of tying up the loose ends that have been scattered throughout the series. Russel T Davies is infamous for setting up a gargantuan task of pleasing fans with good resolutions, but usually he's able to reset things with the flick of a switch / with a Deus Ex Machina, which is kind of when something just godlike comes in and saves the day, essentially.
So like a science fiction term.
It kind of, I think it's just a storytelling term generally, yeah. So yeah, the first part of the story in Wishworld begins with showing the latest incarnation of the Rani in Bavaria, 1865. So an interesting start. She comes across a family where a child's just been born to the 7th son of a 7th son, and she picks up the child to take him away. The mother protests, at which point the Rani kisses the baby's head, blows towards the mother and turns her into violets, and then does the same to the other children. She turns them into ducks, and finally she turns the father into an owl, each time kissing the child's head and then blowing towards her victim. The scene then skips ahead to 2025, so 160 years later, and shows the Doctor and Belinda waking up in bed, greeting each other as a married couple, and soon joined by a child resembling Poppy from the Season 1 episode Space Babies. So this feels slightly disjointed, as there's no resolution to the TARDIS doors being blown off their hinges last week. We don't see how they came into this state. But anyway, Conrad, as well, from earlier in the season, now pops up again. And he's shown to be speaking to residents of this new utopian 1984-esque world through televisions, telling the story of Doctor Who and the Deadly Wish. However, those watching do not question it, except for Ruby Sunday, who turns up at the Doctor's door.
So now from memory, Ruby asks him if he's called the Doctor, to which he replied his name is John Smith, his usual alias. And even Mel, who now lives next door, doesn't recognize Ruby. He now works for UNIT, who are the Unified National Insurance Team, in this new reality, with everyone apart from Ruby, Shirley, Rose, and the Vinks present to Conrad's prejudice. So there are moments where mugs on tables keep dropping to the ground and smashing, which seems to happen when someone is doubting or questioning something. Ooh, sounds quite culty. When it happens, it's just accepted as an accident. However, soon enough, the Doctor is confronted by a message on his TV screen from Rogue?
Yeah, he was in season 1, episode 6, which was also called Rogue. But he was trapped in another dimension. Somehow here he's able to transmit directly to the Doctor with no surprise. No explanation for this, surprisingly. But yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Rogue was trapped in another dimension and is somehow able to transmit directly to the Doctor. He tells him tables don't do that, which wakes the Doctor up slightly into realizing that yes, mugs don't just slip through tables. But Belinda then calls the police due to him expressing doubt. Again, very culty. Belinda is also arrested after her mother shocked her in for expressing doubt earlier on too.
So the scenes where Ruby and Shirley are discussing Conrad and the world that they now live in, although necessary in explaining why the disabled are living on the streets, it does slow things down slightly, or maybe even significantly, for the episode. And it takes viewers out of the action of an already pretty dull episode. They state that they have plans to bring down God, which they obviously mean is Conrad in this case.
Small G.
But when it comes to their plan, they simply set up an iPad on a stand underneath the Bone Palace, where Conrad now resides, believing that they can use it to cut off the signal, allowing him to transmit. Again, with no real explanation for how they would do this.
Say what device were they using to take down this whole operation?
An iPad.
Lovely.
Which they don't remember from the old world, but they found it, and yeah, they
knew how to use it.
Yeah. But anyway, so when the Doctor and Belinda arrive in the Bone Palace after being arrested, the Rani works to wake him up from his delusion, mentioning items and people from Gallifrey's past to see if it triggers his memory. She soon explains her plan, which was to wish a world into existence using Desiderium, who was the child that she stole and is revealed to be the god of wishes. They then want to break open reality by using the Doctor's doubt, opening up the Underverse so that she could release the one who is lost, Omega. Once the Doctor realizes again who he is, remembering his life, she then disposes of him by setting off explosives on the balcony, which leaves him hurtling to the ground as he plummets rather.
You see, the thing is, I can never fault a show for trying to undertake huge concepts because I believe the world runs on creativity, so the further we can push creative concepts, that's great. But unfortunately, because quality also exists, with big concepts come good execution. Well, it should be the case. So although execution sometimes isn't done the best, I can give credit for a great concept.
Yeah. But with great power, there must come great responsibility.
Very true, Uncle Ben.
So yeah, if we move into the second part of the story now.
Yes, so the Doctor is quickly saved by Anita, who appeared in the Christmas special Joy to the World, opening up a time door and pulling the Doctor through.
AKA a little Deus Ex Machina there.
Oh, yes. There are brief glimpses into the Doctor's past from when Anita has tried to find him on her days off.
So this also, we showing both the 11th and 3rd Doctors on separate adventures, and also a quick glimpse of the 15th Doctor's dance with Rogue, which makes Anita realise he was maybe not interested in her romantically.
Oh yes, Rogue was his love interest.
Yes.
So, yes, this leads to the Doctor and Anita using this technology to wake up Unit and Belinda from their delusions, leading to a reunion between everyone, including the Doctor and Ruby. When Mel learns that the Rani is back, the dialogue feels a bit cringy, unnatural, and maybe forced, used as a way of explaining who the Rani is.
To the audience who haven't met her probably at this point, like newer fans, she hasn't been in any episodes since like the 80s, basically.
So people like me.
Yeah, and me. I hadn't ever seen any episodes with her either.
Okay, so when you say newer fans, you mean those not claiming pensions, or?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
So yeah.
With Mel stating, I fought the Rani when I travelled with the Doctor all those years ago, She's indifferent to any pain or morality or humanity. The whole universe is just an experiment to her. This continues when she meets the Rani again, and she literally says, "We meet again." A bit of originality here wouldn't go amiss.
Yeah, I didn't like that bit. It just felt so staged. Like, just, yeah. Trust the audience to get the picture and let her give some exposition as the Rani, not just someone saying all the bad things she does. Like, yeah. So yeah, obviously the Rani turns up, obviously, and makes her intentions known. She asks the Doctor to stand with her and build a new race of Time Lords, using Omega as a gene bank to do so. So then there's some exposition on why the Rani can't use hers, and the Doctor, there's then some exposition on why the Rani can't use her own and the Doctor's DNA to rebuild the Time Lords, with some expansion on Gallifrey's destruction by the Master. So the Rani explains there was a genetic explosion which rendered her and the Doctor sterile and unable to reproduce, which has never actually been mentioned before, and is clearly shoved in as an excuse to bring Omega back. But as this will lead to Poppy no longer existing, the Doctor declines and makes it clear that he will stop her, at which point the Rani retreats to her bone palace and sets the bone beasts onto Unit Tower. This then leads to a battle scene between Unit's weapons array and the beasts. The building itself is able to rotate on the upper floors, and the Doctor then infiltrates the Rani's transport device so that he can fly to the Bone Palace and break the protective threshold.
That was quite a cool scene.
It was. So then this will enable Ruby to teleport into the palace, somehow bringing Conrad's wish to an end. She asks if she can punch him, which Kate immediately agrees to. And yeah, Belinda and Poppy have been placed inside a thing called a zero room, which exists outside of time and space somehow. So that once the wish ends, Poppy will still hopefully exist.
The Doctor now flies into the palace, can't resist seeing Omega, and he is released from his tomb and the Underverse. When he does appear on screen, he is now a huge CGI beast.
Yeah, and nowhere near the fantastic original design that was shown in 1973's multi-Doctor story, The Three Doctors. I haven't watched that episode, but I've seen what Omega looks like, and yeah, it's crazily different. Similar to the last series, where Sutek was built up as a threat in season 1, with hints scattered throughout. But then he ends up being a big CGI beast as well. So for Omega, it feels like a huge missed opportunity here. There wasn't any real build up to him. There was no hints within series 2 of his reappearance. And also the resolution to him is the Doctor using the Vindicator somehow now as a weapon to blast him back into the Underverse, harnessing the energy it's accrued throughout the season. So just, again, very quickly, yeah, he's just disposed of, essentially. And then what's more, the newest incarnation of the Rani is also quickly disposed of. She's actually eaten by Omega before the Doctor kind of kills him.
Such a big build-up for that to happen.
Yeah, and then Mrs. Flood gets to escape. And after barely appearing in 3 episodes, it would have felt more fitting for Mrs. Flood to be eaten, really. I reckon it's because she was quite old. Maybe they couldn't get her up on the harness or something like
the pensioners are coming after you, mate.
Yeah, but and especially with Archie Punjabi's compelling performance as the Rani, I feel like even though I hadn't seen the original Rani, she channeled that energy. I've seen little clips since, and I do really get that kind of energy from Archie's version of the Rani. So yeah, and it also just leaves that question: can Mrs. Flood still regenerate, as she's technically the previous incarnation? So it doesn't really, the logic just doesn't really make sense to me.
Or in other words, chopped logic.
Yeah, chopped logic.
So Ruby is able now to get into how do I say Desiderium. I was trying to remember how to say it properly. It makes a wish toward Conrad that he will be happy, which makes him disappear. Once the wish is over, Ruby and the Doctor escape with the baby in the TARDIS. The baby being Poppy.
Desiderium.
Oh, Desiderium. Yes, the baby who was the god
Of wishes.
God of wishes.
Come on, mate. Come on. You watched it too, didn't you?
When I wasn't sleeping, yes. No, I'm joking. The show was very entertaining. Once the wish is over, Ruby and the Doctor escape with the baby in the TARDIS, where the Doctor has to make a wish of his own at the risk of losing Poppy. No more wishes. Once back at unit, the Zero Room is open, revealing that Poppy had indeed survived, much to everyone's satisfaction, especially the Doctor. Before Anita departs, she mentions they say hello, by the way, the boss.
So, yeah, this is the third mention of the boss since the Star Beast episode. So, yeah, this is, like, it seems like Russell's trying to hint at, again, another villain, but potentially from the past. It could be the Master, who's obviously been in the show many, many times now. But, yeah, that's yet to be seen. So, yeah. But yeah, Desiderium is then left in the safe hands of Ruby's mother, Carla, and the Doctor and Belinda begin to plan their new life as parents to Poppy. So in a clever scene, we see the Doctor and Belinda folding Poppy's coat in the TARDIS whilst Ruby watches. They pass it between each other, and the camera intentionally focuses in on this. And as they fold it, it's becoming smaller until it finally disappears. Viewers then obviously see that Poppy has also disappeared from existence, which feels like a natural conclusion to the wish's ending. The coat folding being quite a subtle way of showing her fading from their memories. However, then Ruby starts to persist that Ruby's persistence that Poppy should exist, much to everyone else's confusion around her, is clearly added in as a result of backstage production changes for this particular episode, which meant that Ncuti Gatwa decided to leave the show. The Doctor then decides to restore reality by jolting the time vortex with regeneration energy, which will result in Poppy hopefully coming back to existence, but him also having to regenerate. The TARDIS console screen begins to show him his previous faces for some reason, and then jolts to the 13th Doctor, who miraculously appears in the TARDIS.
So Jodie Whittaker was the 13th Doctor.
She was.
Gotcha. Okay, so Jodie's return was a highlight for this episode, with her showing up due to timey-wimey stuff.
Timey-wimey.
I'll say that again. Jodie Whittaker's return was a highlight for this episode, with her showing up due to timey-wimey stuff. Or in her words, a great big time schism on its way caused by you, meaning Ncuti, right?
Yes.
Okay. So she's warning the Doctor of his plan to alter reality.
Yeah, so she's worried that if he breaks or if he changes reality in some way, it could rupture the time vortex. So yeah, she can't convince him to change his mind, which leads the Doctor to put on an impressive display with his regeneration energy, channeling it into the TARDIS, and we see the kind of glass break effect and kind of that impression of the reality shattering.
When he somehow awakens in the garden. So he somehow awakens in the garden. He finds that his hand is glowing, ready for his next change. But before that, he is reunited with Belinda, who reveals that Poppy is alive. But in this reality, Belinda has always been Poppy's mother, with their adventures slightly rewritten to have Belinda's reason for getting home purely because of Poppy. And the Doctor is no longer her father.
Yeah, so many fans have been quite disappointed by this resolution, including myself, to be fair. They see it as disrespectful, like a disrespectful rewrite by taking Belinda's autonomy as a woman and making her into a mother, limiting her to a stereotypical female purpose. All the same, the goodbye between the Doctor and Belinda is bittersweet, with him telling her, "We travel in and out of the slipstreams of time. Beautiful things can be forgotten and gone, but they still happened somewhere. I think one thing remains. I love you, and I love you, Pops."
that will never change.
Oh, about to tear up. So the final scenes arrive, the Doctor walking towards the inner doors of the TARDIS as the lights gradually turn off around him, opening up both space and joy. The star from Joy to the World with his final words before regenerating. Joy to the world, and that is exactly the word. This has been an absolute joy. That's great. The Doctor bursts with regenerative flames, which looks fantastic on screen. It really did. Accompanied by a powerful score before transforming into... Go on.
Billie Piper.
Ah, yes. It was Billie.
So she looks around, confused, before exclaiming, "Oh, hello," and the episode ends. But curiously, it doesn't introduce her as the Doctor in the credits, as the show usually does for any new Doctor. It simply says, "Introducing Billie Piper." So, yeah, this ends the season on an unusual cliffhanger, as not only is this the first surprise regeneration, due to it not being revealed before broadcast, although this had been spoiled for some fans, including myself, by leaks, but also having a previous companion returning to play the Doctor, which is a first for the show.
So the Doctor is no stranger to taking faces from their past. I do recall watching Peter Capaldi episodes and his return to the show as the Doctor after appearing in an episode in 2008, and David Tennant, my favourite Doctor, taking on the role of the 14th Doctor in 2022. But this move seems to be a plea of desperation by producers. It does seem like that.
Yeah, I think it's, it just feels a bit like an attention-seeking grab. Billie Piper's back. We all know Billie Piper. She was in the ones with David Tennant. So, it feels a bit like using nostalgia bait as a way to lure in older fans and, maybe have the show renewed for further seasons by Disney, which isn't a guarantee. But, yeah, I think that was a bit of a cash grab almost, without the cash. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think the finale does have some redeeming moments, but they're just not enough to put this story amongst the big leagues of Russell's previous finales, like Bad Wolf and The Parting of the Ways, and Stephen Moffat's World Enough in Time and The Doctor Falls.
So, my friend, what is next for Doctor Who?
What is next indeed? So, I mean, Doctor Who's one of those special beasts of a franchise. It has that ability to induce passion and love from fans, and there's that sense of protectiveness over it from fans as well. And it's really moved into a sense of uncertainty now, the show. There's been no word on a renewal for the series. The BBC and Disney haven't really said anything. There's no clarity on whether Billie Piper is actually playing the Doctor, or if it's just a gimmick, or some kind of story trick that's being played on the fans. So now we're just basically left waiting for news. There's a spin-off show which is coming. Well, that's not confirmed. I'd assume maybe late this year, if not early next year, and it's called The War Between the Land and the Sea. So this is focused on UNIT and the Sea Devils, who are a race of aliens. Well, actually not aliens. They are Earth creatures who live in the sea, a branch of the Silurians, who were like lizard-looking creatures. But anyway, that's what the show is going to be about. A bit of a confrontation between humans and the Sea Devils. So yeah, it's hard to believe that Doctor Who might have aired its last ever season. It could well be the case, though. It could be that it's finally met its end. This has obviously happened before in the 80s with Sylvester McCoy playing the Doctor. But obviously it came back. It came back from the what they called the wilderness years.
It's okay, bro. It's okay.
It's not, though. It's not. But, I mean, there's been overnight viewings which have been on the decline for many years, and a sense of dissatisfaction amongst long-term fans at how the show's been heading and the head writer behind it all. So things might be heading downwards, but if one thing is for sure,
Doctor Who has survived under just the BBC before Disney came in, and it even survived during the COVID era, or COVID days rather. I mean, they produced one of the most visually appealing series since it began. This was the 13th Doctor series, Flux. Even though it was a shorter series of only 6 episodes, it kind of was more of a interlinked story with individual episodes kind of playing a part in the overall arc, which I think worked well, even though it wasn't an amazing series. I mean, visually, like I say, it looked really good, really great. So check that out if you've not seen that. So yeah, to sum up, there's always hope that the Doctor's story will continue, whether with the BBC or another streaming service. But only time will tell what happens next for Doctor Who.
Wow. That was great, breaking down season 2 of Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor Who tenure. Who knows if it's done, but yeah, we look forward to seeing more, if there will be more.
Yeah, and let us know if you agree or disagree with any of the opinions we've raised. If you do disagree, then you're wrong. No, I'm joking. Please do share your opinions. Comment, like, share, subscribe, and yeah, we'll be coming at you with some more intriguing podcast sessions soon. So yeah, stay tuned, and thank you for listening if you've got this far.
So yeah, please continue watching, enjoying our content. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And
thanks for becoming part of the Scout Corps.